Hello everyone. So thank you for joining this webinar today. And the topic for today's webinar is Dart. What is Dart and how it came to being, what it does, what can we do with it, and why is it so good for us to use Dart. So we are going to discuss all these points today, and we are going to see a bit of implementational detail of how we can do different stuff in Dart. So let's get going. So again, as I said, what are we going to do today? We're going to learn what Dart is. We're going to learn why should we learn Dart. We're going to learn why we might not choose to learn Dart, and again some examples of what we can do in Dart. What is Dart? So as per the definition that is given on Wikipedia, Dart is a client-optimized programming language for apps on multiple platforms. It is developed by Google and used to build mobile, desktop, server, and web applications. It is a lot of fancy language, but in small words, all it says is Dart is a language that can do anything, literally, and we actually do anything. Just consider Dart as an alternative to JavaScript, as JavaScript to Node. Same ways we have Dart in language. So Dart does everything that we can do. We can develop iOS, Android applications. We can develop desktop applications. We can develop microservices. We can develop web UIs, and we can also build background services like a simple scripts that to run on different platforms as well. So that gives us a huge level of customizability when it comes to how to use Dart. Dart also has if we can talk about Dart, that how it came to be. The main point of Dart is that Google was trying to develop a language in which they can actually develop UIs, so that the the developers that they already had, who were very keen on structured languages, did not have to relearn every concept in the language itself, which they had to do in JavaScript. So that is why Google developed Dart. So in that way, if we say that why to use Dart, so the main point comes down to a couple of things. Why Dart? Dart is a highly structured and strongly typed language. So again, so any backend developer who has tried to go on to the front end and thought that okay, I might try start developing front end today, the most biggest problem they face is JavaScript. I think that is true for even the front end developers. The biggest problem they face is JavaScript. JavaScript is one of the most, in my own experience, unstructured languages I have encountered. There are literally no level of coherence between the standards of development, that what can should be written where. If you write something in the wrong place, it won't run. Like backend developers are always worried about this, that if they write something in the wrong class, it's not going to work, and that gives it certain level of structure to the development. TypeScript tried to do that a bit when Angular came out. Again, Angular is Google's implementation, so they give this whole thought towards structuring the things correctly. But JavaScript is not obviously Google's thing, and that is why they developed Dart. Node was something that provided the ability for front end or JavaScript users to go into the back end and develop backend services and everything. Dart does the opposite. Dart gives us the ability, gives the backend developers to the ability to actually go on to the front end and develop stuff. Because again, what the major problem that every developer faces while moving from one language to another is its structuring, its packaging, and different intricacies of how the language is structured while development. And JavaScript does not give a very easy mechanism of understanding that what is going on. Dart, on the other hand, is highly structured. Dart, you can say, is a language that is the so simply Java when you are writing it, and it is made for developing UIs. So that is the most apt description that we can come up with for Dart. Dart, if you compare it with Java, anybody who's good in Java automatically is good in Dart, because the conventions are same, the structuring is same, the inheritance system is same. So you get add-ons obviously, but you don't there is no deprecation of any sort of functionality that was available in Java, most of them. The next part that we go on to is the easy to learn. Again, for any backend developer, it is very easy to learn, because they are already familiar with strongly typed and highly structured languages. So they always know that what to do with in this kind of environment. The next point that comes into the discussion is why not to use Dart. Dart is a very new concept and new language. So Dart's community is still growing. Flutter is something that has made the community of Dart very large, but still in the communities that are not Flutter dependent, the community is still small. It is still growing. Although as much as I have had discussion with people who are developing in Dart, it is much more easier to learn Dart than it is to learn any other language when you are already familiar with structured languages, backend languages. Second thing is Dart was started out as something that is supposed to be developing only UIs, and the point that we can do everything in Dart is bit of an afterthought. So what you will find is that more the documentation that you have in Dart, it actually favors the UI development more than it favors the backend development, and that is why the backend frameworks are a bit new, and you have to figure around a bit on internet to find the learning stuff that you need. And third thing that we all of us in these days work in cloud environments, and cloud SDKs are one of the things that we all rely on to connect to different things. And as of right now, only the official SDK for cloud is only available for G Cloud. We do not have Azure. We do not have AWS or any other cloud SDK available. Official ones, they are obviously libraries written by different people. For there's like small utilities you can find for S3, you can find for step functions, you can find similarly for Azure EC2 and networking. But again, they are not official implementations that are given by the companies themselves. They are rather developed by the community to work on with. And finally, that one thing that is my own personal thought is the versioning. The versioning in right now, that we will see it during the implementation as well, that the versioning that works with the development of Dart is a bit irritating sometimes when it comes to using libraries. It is not as robust or straightforward as maybe Maven or Gradle that we use on a daily basis. So next thing that we are going to do is we are going to do some implementation. So today we are going to do three different implementations. We are going to create a Flutter app. We are going to create a small microservice. We are going to also make an Angular app, Angular web app in Dart. And we're going to see all that and that how we do it. So let's get started. So right now where we are is we are on the documentation page of Dart. This is the main documentation page that if you are developing Dart, you would certainly like to see. You will find everything here from code examples where you can see simple code examples of how to do stuff to complete tour of the language that we are using here. So you can see there everything is pretty nicely documented. So where if you want to learn anything, Dart's own particular documentation is more than sufficient to tell what you need. Secondly, what we are gonna do is right now we are gonna do first implementation that we're gonna do is on Flutter, and for doing that, what we have to do first is obviously we have to set up Flutter into our system. To do that, we are gonna go to the Flutter website. Gonna go to this link and select obviously the platform that we want. So I'm running a Windows platform. I will select Windows and download the available SDK. Once the download, obviously for the sake of speed, I've already downloaded the SDK and I have set into my path. So for the second thing that you have to do is you have to set it into your path so that it is available in your shell or any other command line tool that you are using. The one thing that is a bit irritating in this particular manner is that if you are done with Flutter, if you are setting up Flutter says that it by default sets up the Dart SDK for you as well. But one thing that you'll find out once you start doing it is that the one of the most important tools that we everybody needs while development of Dart application, that is the Pub. Pub is a sort of like your package manager, simple same as it works with npm in Node or Maven in Java. So Pub works the same way, but while developing with Flutter, you won't get Pub as installed into your environment. Neither will Dart SDK be directly accessible in your environment if you set up Flutter. So that is why what I was saying was that maybe development of other applications such as microservices and background applications was more of an afterthought, because again they did not create the Flutter SDK and develop Dart SDKs in a way that they can be independently run. They are more convoluted than we thought. So the main point is that once you have done that, all you have to do is go go to your shell. I'm gonna go to the Flutter shell and I'm just simply gonna write Flutter doctor. Flutter doctor is a command which is gonna tell you whether on what level you are while developing the Flutter application. Do you have everything that you need set up, or do you need any more setups? Like right now it is saying that I don't have IntelliJ IDEA set up, because obviously I'm not going to use IntelliJ IDEA to develop Flutter app. I'm going to use the Microsoft's Visual Code and Android toolchain. These are some things that everybody needs to develop setup before they have to start working again. So to do these things, you have to go to the links that I'll be linking into the description of this final stream. So we're gonna go here for anybody who wants to work on iOS simulation. You have to go through this documentation and set up your emulator and environment for the iOS environment. And anybody who wants to develop the Android apps, they have to go here and see how to set up the emulator for Android. simply when it comes down to setting up the Android emulator, it is very easy. What it does is it just installs the Android Studio for us, Android Studio, and the AVD manager. So what AVD manager does is it gives us the ability to spring up different virtual environments. Like this, I have one here that is running. So for in these environments, we can actually test and try out the applications that we are trying to create. That's all much more most of it is. Otherwise, if you have not done this and you don't want to test out your application just on your own environment, you have some like you have a setup device to set you're connected the device through your system, so you can do that as well. So you don't need to do the step of setting up the Android emulator and stuff. Finally, once we are done with that, again what we are going to do is we are going to go back to our shell, and simply Flutter gives a very easy way to us to create apps. And what we are going to do is we are simply going to write Flutter create, and what we can name it as like YouTube stream. So this is gonna do what it is doing is it is creating everything that I need for the development of Android application in Dart. So I will have everything available in that particular directory. Let's go to that directory and see what the directory structure it has created. So here we are, and these are the files that are available to us in here. So one of the most important files that you see in this whole package is pubspec.yml. So this file works more of as package.json or pom.xml. If anybody is actually familiar with this particular thing, all of us know that this particular file is what helps us into maintaining our dependencies and the properties of our current project. By default, if you go with Dart, this all these dependencies are managed by the pub command, but here in Flutter manages all the packages by itself. You don't need pub in case of uh, when we are developing Flutter, but if we are working only with Dart, we will need the pub. So what I'm gonna do is simply I'm gonna go to the directory, and I'm gonna spring up my IDE. So here I have the IDE available, and all the files are actually already recognized because I have something that you will need, and that is the plugin for uh, development of these. Um, Give me a second. Extensions. So I have Dart and Flutter plugin already installed, and that is why I'm all the files here are already recognized, like the pub file and the file inside all of these like the main dart.file and everything in the file is recognized. The reasoning is that I have here extensions Dart and Flutter. So if you want to develop, though you'll have to install Dart and Flutter plugins before doing anything, because that will give you the ability to actually interact with it, so that you have all the functionalities such as uh, the AI working with you to give you the suggestions and stuff. Pubspec file looks like this. It defines the again similarly to any package.json or form.xml, the name, description, the version, environment, and then the dependencies, and the mode to run in different stuff. It is all defined in the pub spec. Whenever you are adding dependencies, you will have to add them here. And the main file that we are going to work with is main.dart. This is the file where everything works. In Flutter development, there are there's one thing that you're going to repeat again and again, that everything is a widget. So what we start with is a main widget, that is my app, and everything will be part of this particular widget. So there are two kinds of widgets: stateless and stateful widgets. Stateless widgets are obviously, as the name suggests, don't have a state, like their data does not have any state, and the data keeps on refreshing on the basis of what we are calling. Like if we create graphs, we create different forms. Some most of these we create them as stateless widgets, and then we control them with stateful widgets which actually have a state saved of the data that need to be displayed. Everything is a widget. So again, and as you will see, there's one thing that is a bit different than we have in Java, where while structuring you can have multiple classes in the same file, and this won't be a problem even by the standards of Dart. Although whenever we are developing, even in Dart, we try to keep a single class in single file so that the structuring is as optimized as possible. So by default, this particular Flutter's environment creates this main.dart file with multiple classes. So all we have to do in order to run Flutter, run this app, all we have to do is Flutter run. And what it'll do is, it will start this application in my emulator, and you'll see in a minute. So as we can see, the application was run here, and I have actually stopped the application because again it was taking a bit too much resource on my system. So as you can see, this is the running application that we have here. This is the exact application that we have run here. And you can see if I run it again and show you how the changes reflect. So I can simply run it here. Again, it is going to take a bit of time, but it took a bit less time than last time because obviously it internally does caching and everything in order to optimize the build process. So it is started here again. So I've reset the counter. Now if I update this file, like my home page, so I'm gonna call it YouTube stream. I save it, then it is gonna be hot reloaded into my system. Apparently the hot reloading is not working as of right now. By default it is not working. Okay, so as I said, hot reloading, it took it, I had to press R in order to run it. So if we will see here, YouTube stream is updated here. So all these things, if you will see, it is the structure itself of the files is much similar to what we write in Java and other highly strongly typed languages. It is not more of towards that like simply everything is a function and everything like in JavaScript everything can be created into a function and passed on to everywhere. It is not the method that we do it here. We create apps and we create constructors. If you see this particular whole thing, this that we see here, this is a constructor of material app. We can create this particular method of definition gives us the ability to actually use the only given only the number of variables that we want to define while we are calling this while we are calling the constructor. So and this gives us a little bit of more structure when we are defining any particular constructor, because it shows us that what are the exact parameters that we have defined here. So again we are going to move on as we the time of stream is going to end soon. So we are going to move on to the next part. The next part that we as we discussed was Aqueduct, right? Creating a simple microservice in Aqueduct. So what is Aqueduct? Aqueduct is again environment, simple, very small as of right now, framework to develop different applications, microservices in Dart. So what Aqueduct does is it gives us this ability to use Dart simply to create microservices. Aqueduct is very good because by default Dart has a very good implementation of HTTP. All it does is it structures the Dart's own implementation in such a way that it is very easy for us to run and create these microservices. Or that's all it does. It helps us in packaging. It helps us with the ORMs. It helps us with the multi-threading. So all it does is it uses the base packages and extends them in such a way that everything that every feature of HTTP is available very easily, rather than us creating those the whole frameworks of how we want to package our code. It gives us a very easy way to create stuff. Again, as I said, whenever we are developing with Dart and Flutter. So Flutter, when we are setting up the Flutter environment, the Dart environment independently won't be set up. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to go to the Dart and we'll have to get the Dart SDK and simply as we did with Flutter SDK, we'll have to download it and set up in our path so that it is available for us to use. But once we are done with that, what we'll want to do is we'll want to go to pub.dev. This is equivalent to Maven repository. So this is where you'll find all the packages that you want to use. May it in the Flutter, or may it in the Aqueduct, may it in the Angulardart, anything. So like if I want to search Aqueduct, you'll be able to find it here. So here we have Aqueduct is available here. One thing that I might have missed, that Aqueduct, it also gives us the ability to create tests. So unit tests are not a problem when it comes to Aqueduct. You don't have to worry about mocking, and everything is available with Aqueduct, and you can write your tests very easily. So let's get on to the development part of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here, and as I said, pub is the command that we want everywhere. Whenever we are working with only Dart, where apart from Flutter, if you are using Flutter gives its own tools, but pub is like Maven for everything else. So if you see, pub gives us these commands. In order to install Aqueduct, also does one more thing. It gives us its own tool, Aqueduct. So what Aqueduct does is it gives us a similar functionality that was given to us by Flutter. That using those commands we can very easily create new applications with all the packaging already available, so that we don't have to run around and create the project and write down all the facade that we need in order to just simply start. So if you want to install anything or activate anything in that globally for everywhere, so this is the command. For me, I've already done that. So I already have Aqueduct available with myself here. So Aqueduct is already available, so I'm not going to do that. If you wanted to, simply just write this command and press enter, you will be golden. One thing that you have to take care while working with Aqueduct is, right now it is not, the Aqueduct's CLI tool is not working. It is not compatible with the latest version of Dart. So you will have to go towards 2.7x versions of Dart while developing with Aqueduct. It is not that old when it comes to the versioning. So it is not bad to actually use 2.7. They are working very hard because Aqueduct is not a very big team. Aqueduct is sort of a small community of developers who are maintaining this. So they actually take a bit of time to actually update the library. They are working on it, and it soon will be available. But as of right now, we'll have to go with 2.7 version of Dart. Right now, I think the current version is somewhere 2.10 or something. So as we can see here, the only command that we need to create our project is Aqueduct create. Here is. And similarly, for with every other package manager, it does packaging, it does creation, and everything. It is giving us the whole shebang when it comes to creating new project. So it is here it is gonna create all the directories, all the files that we are required in order to run. So as you will see, some of the packages, you will understand that why we need them. Like this is the base package that Aqueduct uses in order to run the HTTP. Similarly, we have the asynchronous one. We have Aqueduct tests available right here. So it is pre-compiling executables, and soon we are gonna be having runnable project available for us. Give it a minute. Streaming takes up a lot of horsepower when it comes to your environment. That's why development becomes slow while you're streaming. So I apologize for the slowness of my system. This is taking too much time. Uh, Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can ask me on the chat. Probably I'll try to answer. While it's pre-compiling, let's see again. As I said, Pubspec is something that is very important. Then anybody who's actually working with the Dart need to get familiar with it. Obviously, if we go inside, we can see the obvious things. So what we're gonna do is, again, we're gonna do. Uh, we're gonna open it up in Visual Studio. And here it is. So we have our Pubspec file available here. Very simple, nothing much available here. We have just written some simple stuff and dependencies, Aqueduct test, Aqueduct, and SDK version of our Dart. The main thing that you see are available in these two folders. The main.dart is the application that you are running. So this is the piece of code that will actually spring up your servers when you are trying to run an Aqueduct application. And then it comes back to how where do we define our, whenever we are working with microservices, obviously we are going to define endpoints and stuff. So this is channels is the place where we define our endpoint. So right now we have an example endpoint defined, which is gonna give out the key and value of the response. So it is a link to a asynchronous function, and simply, and the application where we write our application to this file, heroes.dart, and we can move on from here. We can create any number of classes that we want, and any number of functions that can be linked to these routes that we create here. You can create complex routes with multiple uh, path variables and everything in this particular library. So we have support for every basic function of HTTP1 and HTTP 1.2. So you can do everything here. Secondly, if we see again, yeah, so we are done here. And in order to run this, all we have to do is simply go write a simple command, that is aqueduct serve. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll have to go inside the project first. Heroes and aqueduct serve. One thing that you will notice is this particular app, by default, Dart runs springs of servers on multiple threads. By default, there are multiple instances of the same server running on your particular uh, system. So this, what it does is it highly increases the parallelism of your application and correspondingly the speed. This whole the whole point is documented in the definition of aqueduct. When we go here, if we go bit down, so we'll find it. The more you know this, but it is a very good read. It gives us the definition of how the multi-threading of our application is working in aqueduct, and it gives us a very good understanding that how it will work in Kubernetes or how it will work in different environments that we are going to run. So it is a very good read if you want to read it. This whole documentation is very clear and very well understandable written. The language is very easy to understand. So let's move on to the last part. And the last part of our demo today is again the Angular Dart. Angular Dart is the way for us. Okay, I forgot to do one thing. I forgot to give you the preview of whether the R application is running or not. So just for the sake of completion, we are gonna go here and write example. And as you see, this is what we are returning in our channels.dart. So en value, I can return anything here, anything I want. So if I write here test, I'm gonna simply, although again hot reloading everything was just so that it the like last time it happened, hot reloading was not working. I've restarted it. So okay, I'm sorry, I've not saved the file. I have to save it first and then restart. And here we go, YouTube test. So it is very simple, it is very easily configurable, and everything can be done in couple of strokes when you're working with Aqueduct, and it is very fast to develop as well. Aqueducts gives by default ORM support, which makes it very easy to work with different kind of databases as well. So the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to set up Angulardart. So in order to set up Angulardart, we are going to go to the Angulardart setup guide. So what it tells us that we don't need to do much except set up Dart SDK and whatever our favorite IDE is. We already know we are using Visual Studio Code, and simply check out this particular quick start guide from their GitHub. This is something that I don't like, obviously. This is an irritating part because I thought it is much. It will be very good if they provide us the tools and have the dedication to actually create these tools so that we can develop better. So one thing that is very good about this, that whole AdWords program that we see on internet, that is or the whole program is developed on AngularDart. So it is not that the support for Angular Dart is going to go away soon, but obviously this is a slowly developing environment. If you want to develop web UIs, Flutter also is now coming out with the tools to develop web UIs. So we can, if you in some future videos, we can actually go into the depth of developing web UIs with Flutter, which is actually much intuitive than working with Angular Dart, in my personal opinion. The one thing that we want to do before doing anything is set up web dev. Web dev is similar to pub that we set up. So all we have to do is go into global activate web dev. I have already, as we all know, set it all up in my system. What WebDev does is it works as our Webpack. So it will help us convert the code that we have written in Dart into JS and then serve it like we do with any other Webpack that we have. Like we have Webpacks for React and uh, Angular, the normal Angular that we write in TypeScript. The one thing that you'll find is that React and Angular are much more mature than anything you write with Angular Dart as of right now. And obviously, even with Flutter, because again, they are very UI centric frameworks and they have been working on it for a long while. But again, I'm not going to say that it is a bad framework in any way. You can make anything that you want with it. You just have to give it a bit more thought than you do with the React and any other React, Angular, or Vue that we work with in JS. So let's go back to our setup, and where, as they have said, we are going to clone this particular directory, a particular repo here. Git clone, paste. It's gonna take a minute or two. The speed is not that high right now. Again, as I'm streaming. And we are done. So we are going to go to our, and we're going to spring up our IDE here. So again, as we see everywhere, Pubspec is here as well. So we don't have to do anything in order to for this to run, and all we have to do is go into our shell and write web devs sorry pub get works more like npm install when we are working. If anybody is familiar with the JS frameworks like Vue and React, we have to do npm install before we have started working with the particular project, so that all the dependencies of that project are downloaded on the node in the node modules. Similarly, we have when we go to this directory, we'll see that we have there'll be a folder that called Dart tools created here. If we go back and see here in heroes, we'll have this dot Dart tool. This is almost same to what we have there in Node modules. This is the Node modules section. So again, we are recompiling our dependencies. It is going to take some time. While while that is being done, let's open up some of the files. So here you see this is our main.dart that is running our application, and with the files, the components that we are creating are all written here. So I'm gonna change this name to Dhananjay so that while running, you'll see that my application is my own, not anybody else's, obviously. And it is done. So what I'm gonna do is dev serve. So it is running on 8080. So if we go to our host 8080, let's see it running. It's still packaging, so we should wait a bit. Now the speed of this particular application is not much different than what we'll find in Vue or React when it comes to the comparison numbers. I'm still working on comparing each of these particular frameworks with the other frameworks like React Native with Flutter, Spring. Obviously, I'm not gonna compare Spring with the Aqueduct, because Spring is a juggernaut and Aqueduct is like a small baby when it comes to microservices. Probably I'll be comparing it with Express.js and similar frameworks, because those are much more closer in terms of functionality that they provide to Dart rather than Spring, because Spring itself is not just a simple mechanism for creating microservices, it's a whole thing in itself when it comes to development. So as you can see, hello Dhananjay, I changed the name there. It is similarly, components work similar. If you are familiar with a bit with the functionality of Angular, you won't have any kind of particular problem when you're working with Angulardart, because the nomenclature and taxonomy is exactly same where what we use in Angular. The only thing that changes is we stop using TypeScript and we start using Dart. Well, as of right now, this is it, and that's all we have for today. If you have any questions, you can please ask. We have a bit of time left in the stream, so I'll try my best to answer any of the questions that you have. If not, I'll simply end the stream here. Hmm. So, I think we don't have any questions. Another combo like. No, right now Vue Dart is not available, because again the people who are working with the let me see, actually I'm not so sure. I'm not gonna quote myself on something that I am not. discovered myself. So right now, yeah, I'm gonna simply search for Vue Dart. Okay, and that is something available. Okay, so maybe my next stream will be on this Vue Dart, and we will see that how this works out, because the main point that I'm gonna be interested in here is the last updation of it and what version of Dart it runs on. It's not defined here. Let me see here. Because yeah, I'll get back to you on this. Well, we'll come back with a tutorial of Vue Dart. So I hope this was a bit informational to everybody who actually joined in. And for next time, we are gonna compare different services. We are gonna again, as I've myself learned here about Vue Dart, we are gonna compare Vue Dart with Angular Dart. We are gonna compare Vue Dart with Vue, simply JS. We are gonna compare uh, Aqueduct with Express.js. We are gonna compare React with Flutter, so that we can decide which ones are the what are the caveats between each using each of these technologies. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.